So today we're digging into a source article that asks a pretty provocative question about a huge lawsuit happening in Nigeria. Is a legal fight against a top hospital just about getting justice, or could there be a much bigger political play happening behind the scenes? Let's unpack the claims.
Okay, let's start with the number that's right at the heart of this whole thing. 2.9 billion naira. That is a huge amount of money, and it's the sum at the center of a lawsuit against one of Nigeria's premier hospitals, Euracare. A number like that tells you right off the bat the stakes here are incredibly high.
All right, to really get our heads around what this article is claiming, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the lawsuit itself. Then, we'll get into the really serious accusation of sabotage. We'll look at how the source presents the two sides, explore the supposed economic motive behind it all, and finally, see what the article says should be done in response.
All right, first up, let's talk about the event that gets the ball rolling on this entire story, that high-stakes lawsuit at the center of it all.
So the one thing that's not up for debate is this. Euracare, a major destination for medical tourism in Nigeria, is facing a massive lawsuit. Now, the article makes it clear this isn't just any old hospital. It's seen as a real symbol of the country's progress in healthcare.
Now, right away, the article kind of sets the stage with this quote. It's basically saying, hey, the law isn't supposed to be used for personal revenge. The point they're making is that courts are supposed to be driven by hard facts and evidence, not vendettas. And this idea is so important because it lays the groundwork for the article's main claim, that the real reasons for this lawsuit are going to be exposed in court.
Okay, and this is where things get really interesting. We're moving on to the heart of the source's argument, which is a very serious accusation of sabotage. According to the article, this is the point where a simple legal dispute might actually be something way more complex.
Which leads us to the critical question the source wants us to ask. Is this lawsuit really what it looks like on the surface, or is it just one move in a much bigger, more calculated political game? And here it is, the bombshell claim from the article. It alleges that this lawsuit isn't random at all. Instead, it's supposedly the newest tactic being used by a group with secessionist ambitions, a move aimed squarely at weakening the Nigerian state. Now, to back this up, the article lays out what it calls a pattern of failed plots, all supposedly carried out by the same group. As you can see here, they include an alleged attempt to install a certain political figure, a failed effort to get the U.S. involved, and a negative PR campaign to damage the country's image. The source then frames this lawsuit against Euracare as just the next logical step in that sequence. So, who exactly are the key players in this drama, at least according to the article? Let's take a look at how the source material defines the two opposing sides.
The article paints a really black and white picture here. On one side, it identifies a group it calls the Nzogbun Zogbus, linking them to the hashtag #NBadGovernance protests and accusing them of having secessionist goals. On the other side, you have Euracare, which isn't just a hospital, but a symbol of Nigeria's economic potential and progress. According to this source, these two groups represent two completely different visions for the country's future.
But that brings up a really good question, right? If this whole theory is true, why on earth would you target a hospital? Well, the article tries to answer that by digging into what it claims is the economic game plan here.
Yeah, let's explore that. According to the article, the answer has everything to do with the economic power that an institution like Euracare represents. So, the key idea here is medical tourism. It's pretty simple. It's when people travel to another country, in this case Nigeria, specifically to get medical care. And the source really hammers this point home. For Nigeria, this is a huge deal. It's a major economic engine that creates jobs, brings in foreign money, and, maybe most importantly, builds up the nation's reputation on the world stage.
And that brings us right to the heart of the motive the article is proposing. The theory is that by launching a lawsuit that could destroy a leading hospital's reputation, the real goal is to scare away international patients and torpedo this entire growing industry. The source isn't just framing this as a lawsuit, it's calling it a strategic act of economic warfare.
Okay, so if this is the threat that the article is describing, what should be done about it? In our last section, we'll look at the specific actions the article recommends for both institutions and the Nigerian public. For hospitals, the article's advice is pretty clear. First, protect your patients and your reputation above all else. Second, stay out of politics. Just focus on your mission of patient care. And third, get out there and actively promote Nigeria's medical successes to push back against what the source calls a campaign of disinformation.
And get this, the article even offers this very specific and memorable piece of advice as a defense tactic. It suggests having visitors sign a waiver that says, "We care, God heals." It's a simple but powerful way to manage expectations and give the institutions some legal protection.
And this call to action isn't just for hospitals, it's for the Nigerian public too. The source urges citizens to support their own world-class local institutions and, crucially, to stay vigilant against what it calls divisive narratives meant to slow down the nation's progress.
The article wraps up with a really powerful statement, putting its faith back in the justice system. It asserts that the law will decide what happens to Euracare, not, in its words, secessionist whims. And that leaves us with a central question at the heart of this entire source's argument. When a high-stakes lawsuit collides with national politics, are the courts going to reveal a simple legal matter or a single chapter in a much, much larger story?